Hello, this is Dr. Asrar Rashid and welcome back to Doctorate Diaries. Today we're going to be addressing a very important topic, and that of formatting your thesis. It's important to get this right early on so that it will save you a lot of time down the line. So let's get started. An important first step is to download the postgraduate guidelines from your university. This will provide some essential information on what an ideal structure of a thesis should look like. Font size, also nomenclature, word count, all these are very, very important. So do have a look at that early. Now, the structure and the formatting of your thesis depends quite rightly, and it must be focused on your hypothesis, which then lead to the aims and objectives of the thesis. And they should fit very nicely with the structure of your of the thesis in terms of chapters and the flow of the argument leading from the initial phases of the introduction through the core chapters and finalization in the conclusion. So this is an essential aspect of the structure that must be shown in the thesis. So if you look at my thesis, we'll just go on to Scrivener now, and you'll see there we have a core start title page, and a lot of these things in terms of dedications and acknowledgements and quotes, etc., can be added throughout the journey of a thesis. If you can bring a structure to the PhD thesis early, this will help you to develop the arguments going down through the various experimental chapters leading to the conclusion. So if you see here, we have a title page, and understanding the font and how the thesis comes together in each chapter is very, very important. And if you can keep the same form. If you download different theses, you'll see that there's a variation around the theme. But what's important is the consistency. So you can see here, I've decided to have a quote at the beginning of each chapter, followed by the actual title. And the title font I've given 14, bold, Arial. So I've kept a consistent standard all the way through. So the main headings I've given font size of 12. So this is a consistent structure throughout the thesis. What's important also is consistency in terms of when you write the figures, when you're showing the captions, need to be consistent. I've here a diagram which shows you how the thesis drivers for me led to the chapters, and each of the chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 have brought together different aspects of the multidisciplinary subjects that are key to the development of the argument in my thesis. Don't think that this suddenly came to fruition, and it's taken days, months, and years to come to this level of maturity. But you have to start somewhere. This is why I encourage you all to start writing and developing the thesis from an early stage. Now let's talk about how the thesis will evolve over time. In the early stages, your thesis might seem overwhelming and extensive, but as your arguments mature, you'll find that the size of the thesis will begin to shrink. Good supervision is key here. Your supervisor will help you refine your ideas, cut out unnecessary content, and focus on what truly matters. Remember, your thesis is not just a collection of information. It's a cohesive argument that needs to be presented in a clear and concise manner. By structuring your thesis, for example, bringing together individual papers, we not only make it more manageable, but also create validation points. So one thing I did in my thesis was to, with regards to the experimental chapters, was to consider each chapter as a separate paper, and with the aim really to submit papers through the thesis. And I think that was very, very helpful. It provided structure. I knew the amount of diagrams and tables that were going to be required in the main body of the thesis, what could go in the supplement, how many references I needed to utilize, and I was able to bring the argument in from the introduction with the methods, results, and then finalizing with conclusion and discussion and conclusion. So this is the format that I used in my thesis, and I believe that gave me quite a lot of focus. It ensured I could rapidly go through the relevant material, and the argument of that chapter continues to strengthen. Also, when you submit the paper, you will get reviewer feedback, and that will also help you structure the thesis. Developing the argument and structuring a coherent and clear hypothesis was important in my thesis. It allowed me then to develop the aims and objectives according to the requirements of the hypothesis. And the aim was really to prove and disprove the hypothesis by the end in the discussion of the thesis. Utilize a consistent style. Ensure that your writing style is consistent throughout the thesis. Use the same tense, voice, and terminology. Follow the citation styles recommended by your university, and remember to incorporate proper citations to avoid plagiarism. Use clear headings and subheadings. The headings you use in your thesis must help direct the paragraphs that develop thereof. A consistent style in the tables and the figures is important throughout the thesis. And if you get others to proofread the thesis, that will help you catch errors and improve clarity. And remember, as I said before, remember to back up your work. The advantage of the Scrivener package that I've shown is that you can set the formatting of the thesis from the beginning, depending on which template you utilize. I think you'll find that very, very helpful in terms of maintaining consistency throughout the thesis. Another tip is to download from PhD repositories and see how others have undertaken the thesis process. Of course, thesis in the humanities will look different from those in the sciences. So try to find a thesis in a similar domain. So my domain was in computer science, genomics, and clinical medicine, artificial intelligence. But as my PhD was in the School of Computing, I focused on those doctorates from the computer science division to give me an indication on how I need to develop the structure. So if you see my structure here, if you go back to the Scrivener, you can see we have an introduction, and actually I have two reviews. One is a sort of general review, and the second is a more technical review that helps to bring the reader from the clinical realm into the realm of computer science. So, and then from there on, chapters 4, 5, and 6, and 7 were chapters related to the experimental or data analysis, with chapter 8 being the conclusion. So that was the structure and framework of my thesis. Through COVID, we saw a lot of conditions that were affecting the heart in adults and children, and specifically in children, affecting the coronary arteries. So I then dedicated one chapter in relation to the effect of inflammation on coronary arteries. So I think having that ability to utilize and understand the context is very, very important, to incorporate new ideas as you move along. So although formatting can be a boring and laborious exercise, it's extremely important to get it right early, to develop the frameworks and structures, to use a software package like Scrivener to give that standardization and that clarity, and consistency. Please give this episode a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you.